Module 12. In this module, we will discuss about pre-digital corpus part 1, and the next module we will discuss about the pre-digital corpus part 2. So, in this module, we will discuss the questions of relevance of the study, the significance of this survey, and particularly we will refer to how pre-digital corpora are used in different areas of linguistic research. In this module particularly, we will emphasize on how the language corpora are used in compiling dictionaries. So, as it is almost clear to us that the present age from linguistic perspective is the age of corpora. That means all the major areas of language studies and linguistics, computational linguistics, language technology, and other relevant domains are directly using information, data, and examples obtained from corpora either to explore new areas of linguistic research, to substantiate earlier observations, develop resources, or to challenge the earlier theories and models. So, this new trend of using language corpora or new method of using corpora in linguistic research automatically generates a vital question. If this is a new trend, then what was the situation before this digital corpora came into picture of linguistic research and development activities? The basic purpose of this module is to reflect on those areas where in earlier days, even if there was no technology available for the linguists to compile language data and to utilize them in their respective research and development domains, even then, many scholars directly or indirectly depended on a large collection of language data, either we can call a language database or in the corpus in true sense, to carry out their individual research projects. So, here we are going to explore some of the avenues of those earlier era before language corpora in digital form was introduced, how they excelled in their activities. So, what will happen? We will try to understand how language texts are broadly divided in those days into two parts, text corpus and speech corpus, how these are used in various domains, starting from dictionary compilation, collection of dictionary of quotations, lexical study, writing grammars, speech study, language pedagogy, language acquisition, stylistic studies, and other fields. So, here mostly I will concentrate only on dictionary development. Now, the question of relevance, actually we want to understand why this survey is becoming so relevant for us. First, we can call these language databases developed in earlier centuries as corpora in the true sense of the term before we develop this in the Indian form. So, this is an important question we need to ask, that those language databases which have been used by earlier scholars are actually can be called corpora or not. So, this is an important question that needs to be properly addressed. Second important questions, are those databases developed following the same rules and techniques and methods and principles that we still follow to develop corpora? What was their strategies? What were their methods? Then do we differ from them in the methods, techniques, in compilation of language data for the purposes? How did they differ from our approaches? Are these databases considered reliable in linguistic work of various fields? That is a very pertinent question that has to be asked here very clearly, that they use certain amount of language data. That's true. But the question is, was that enough for them to carry out their research? That's a very vital question we need to know. It was whether it was pertinent or sufficient enough, or it was reliable enough to be used as a database, useful, faithful database for the research work. Next question. Did these databases distinctly edge over the intuitive evidences used in traditional linguistic tasks? This is another important question. We need to refer to that. Whether those databases provided any empirical base to those scholars to handle their problems in a far better way than depending on their intuition. That means the databases which they used definitely had certain advantages in the research than their intuition. How did these databases contribute towards maturity and growth of the field of linguistics in general? Very important philosophical or theoretical question. How did those databases actually support linguistics to grow as a full-fledged discipline? And that questions can be clearly put against the present scenario, where we strongly argue that perhaps Corpus is giving more impetus to the discipline of linguistics to grow as a full-fledged, widely varied discipline in these days than it was envisaged even half a century ago. Whether this question is also pertinent for the people who were engaged in earlier years. Did the practice of utilizing empirical databases in linguistics works leave any kind of lasting impact on target users? There is another important question that needs to be addressed adequately. Did those empirical databases had any lasting impact on the subsequent generations of scholars to realize that empirical evidences accumulated in the form of databases are more useful than depending on intuitive language observations? So these are the basic questions which we need to address here as the important pillars to justify the relevance of the present survey. Now we would like to understand the significance of the present survey. At initial stage, it is very clear to mention that this is basically a scrutiny of the earlier resources that were available to them to see how those linguistic resources helped those scholars to carry out their works. Also, it is a homage to the earlier scholars who paved a new path of linguistic research for the generations to follow. Also, it is sincere acknowledgement of the contributions to the linguistics in general by the earlier contributors. This is an attempt to explore and know how corpora are developed and used in the works of lexicography, lexicology, comparative linguistics, grammar writing, and many other domains. That systematic recording and documentation is very much necessary to substantiate our argument how language databases, empirical language corpora are essential in linguistic research. So this survey intends to redirect our attention towards those age-old techniques of empirical linguistic research and utilization, which are neglected by the practitioners of intuitive linguists for some time now. This study also reiterates the importance of empirical language corpus as one of the most reliable resources in linguistic data and information for linguistics and language technology and language applications in general. So, this study substantiates our claim that it is not a new innovative. Language corpora was also used in earlier days as a good resource for different linguistic research. Finally, this study encourages us with necessary linguistic impetus to advocate the principle of corpus-based empirical language study in proper perspective with adequate importance on language data in use. So it is clear to us there are some definite clear goals for us to explore, to understand how before the advent of digital language corpora into the mainframe of linguistic research and application, earlier scholars used to refer to these texts, databases, to achieve their goals. In this module, let us first concentrate on different types of lexicographical developments. Lexicographical research was done, dictionaries were made with reference to corpora. It is almost clear to any person who is engaged in linguistic research, particularly in lexicographic words, that for compiling a dictionary of any kind, we need large collection of words. And the best way to collect those words to be included in the dictionary is the corpus. That means, if we have a large collection of texts available to us, we can identify those words from the corpus and list them in a separate lexical database, which should be considered for inclusion in the dictionary. The reality is, in every stage of dictionary compilation, and in the history also, in every age when dictionary was compiled, a large lexical database was a primary requisite for compiling a dictionary. So, collection of words can be done two ways. Either you can also refer to the lexical database already developed and available in the language in the form of a dictionary or word list or word book or some other things, some other mode. Else, you yourself can collect the data, process the data and collect the words. The basic argument is, without large collection of words, it is not possible to compile a dictionary. And if you need to have large collection of words used in a language, you definitely need to depend on certain sources. Either it is in the form of a corpus or in a large lexical database or in different ways. So let us see how in the history, particularly we are concentrating on English language to show how people compiled dictionaries with reference to large collection of word dictionaries or word lists collected from huge data of language use. If we refer to the first comprehensive dictionary in English, which was compiled by Sir Samuel Johnson in 1755, how the strategy he adopted to collect So, the Dictionary of English Language, which was first published in 1755, Johnson followed a unique process to collect the data. What he did? He compiled a database of English text by way of collecting a large number of illustrative sentences from his wide reading of texts composed by great writers of the time. All the selected sentences were meticulously recorded in numerous citation slips for future use and reference to. So it is very clear Johnson also adopted the same, but since there was no technology available to him, he did it manually. He collected, because he read wide collection of texts, meticulously collected those words with illustrative examples, wrote them in citation slips. So he had a unique method in collection. The important part of his task was the meaning variations of each word included in his database were identified and listed separately in a systematic fashion. The list began with classifications of meanings with regard to natural and primitive significance. Gradually, it continued with regard to the consequential meanings, metaphorical meanings, poetical meanings, and familiar meanings of the words, to end up with categorizations of unique meanings of the words that were used idiosyncratically by great authors of his time. So what you find here, that he not only collected the large texts of words with illustrative examples, he also classified the word meanings categorically, systematically, and defined classes, also giving a subclass where idiosyncratic use of the words by the authors were also categorized. So he had a well-defined scheme of classifications of word meanings also, which he wanted to include into his dictionary. Further, the meanings of most of the words were classified into several groups and were illustrated with reference to the citations collected from the writing of authors of first repute who wrote since the accession of Elizabeth. So what happened? He also identified the meanings, also classified them systematically, also noted which reputed authors you have used them in different types, different ways. In addition to linguistic significance, those citations are meant to provide the pleasure or instructions by conveying some elegance of language or some percept of prudence or piety about the English language. So see how Sir Samuel Johnson has taken care to compile his database, to collect meanings from the databases, classify those meanings, and how he always tried to capture the elegance, the piety, the sophistications in language to capture, to represent it. So, following this strategy, he compiled nearly 1,50,000 sentences with full illustrative meanings, and from there he collected approximately 40,000 headwords which were included in the dictionary. I repeat again here that this entire huge task was done by him manually in 1755. The book dictionary was published, so he had to carry out this task before that. So perhaps the plan which he submitted in 17 and the dictionary was produced in 1705. So within these 8 years, time, he was able to collect a huge database of language citations, full illustrative examples, then and 40,000 head words to be included. The dictionary. There was a mammoth task, the massive project for him. In essence, the aspects, the issues which Johnson wanted to address in his work includes the names of the species, orthography and spelling, etymology, pronunciation, derivation, expression, irregularities, analogy, phraseology, cants, syntax, interpretations, and distributions. So think how much labor he has taken and how exhaustive he has tried to be to provide the detailed information in the dictionary. So here our basic argument is that Johnson depended on a large collection of lexical database and corpus, if we call it at all in that sense, to develop the first English dictionary in English. Now, we are coming to the new trend, that new dictionary, which is still considered the best in the world, is Oxford English Dictionary. And this was also developed with huge collections of data in the form of texts and citation slips by James Marr. The first published edition we get in 1882. There were some criticisms against the limitations of the dictionary, which was produced at the time. So the criticism made by Sir Richard Trench in the Philological Society triggered the project of compilation of a new dictionary where much elaborate explanations of the words would be available. So the compilation of the Oxford English Dictionary started in 1879 when Sir James Marr was entrusted with the task of editorship of the dictionary. In next 5 decades, James Marr and his team developed a corpus of 5 million citations that total approximately 50 million words. Can you imagine the strength, the amount of data considered for compilation of the first edition of Oxford English Dictionary? Sir James Marr and his team compiled 5 million citations from 50 million words. Citations were collected from several sources of literary exercise to illustrate the usage of to be around 4,20,000 lexical entries included in the Oxford English Dictionary. So what is basic important point here is that in earlier days, particularly with regard to Oxford English, the amount of corpus was really massive, even in today's respect, for developing a dictionary. So what was the advantage of this? This process of collection of data helped enormously the dictionary to preserve the valuable historical records about the origin and development of meanings of each entry word with illustrative definition. Also, this dictionary recorded the changes observed in spelling of words to reflect on different orthographic forms each word had assumed at various stages of its origin and change in the history of the English language. Moreover, the dictionary was enriched with corroborative lexical information to provide a most complete and authoritative etymological information of words, a property which still remains an unchallenged feature of the Oxford. So our observation is that Oxford English has become so much authoritative, so much valuable, just because the information and data are all collected from the actual language use, not from intuitive collection. So here lies the importance of empirical data in the task of dictionary compilation. Now, when the supplementary volumes were published, after the first volume was published in 1882, more data was required. So original existing database was supplemented with new set of data. What was that? The original text database used for compilation of the first volume of Oxford Dictionary in 1882 was stored systematically. Then additional texts are used for compiling supplementary volumes published between 1972 and 1986. Nearly 50,000 new words are collected from science and technology, vulgarisms, and taboo to be added to the database of the second edition. Moreover, several regional varieties of English, say Canadian variety, Australian variety, US variety, African variety, Indian variety, Jamaican variety, all those were also included into the database. So what happened? In the new edition, contained nearly 4,50,000 entry words, and each one was defined and illustrated with reference to 2.5 million suitable quotations which are collected from the text. So it was a huge task in supplementary volume to develop. The present electronic version of the dictionary provides a range of tools for searching the dictionary entries in various ways, which however not been possible in the printed version. From 2000 onwards, it seemed the new edition, the second edition of Oxford, is available online with entries added every quarter of a year. And at present, it is a huge corpus now ready to be utilized and being utilized also for develop the dictionary. Now, if you look back to the American English, the new International Dictionary, which is published in 1934, contains 16,65,000 citations compiled from a database built up with various printed and published documents. Again, here also we give a clear indication that even in American dictionary also, a huge corpus of regular use were collected and that database was processed to extract words and all related information which were furnished in the dictionary. So this is general dictionary. While we are collecting the dictionary of quotations, dictionary of antonyms, dictionary of synonyms, dictionary of polysyny, and many other types of dictionaries, as we know that we can also have dictionary of spellings, dictionary of usage. So all different kinds of dictionaries are also being collected in earlier days. Every time the data was collected manually, either at individual level or in collective level, in a collection at group level, from various domains of language use, and there with full illustrated examples of words as a citations to be produced in the dictionaries. So here our argument is very simple, that use of language corpus was almost mandatory in compilation of dictionaries. Even when there was no electronic corpora available to the masters of the game, they manually developed large collections of data, language data, collected, processed them, accessed them, analyzed them, classified them, categorized them, then collected necessary information about the words, their usages, their illustrative examples, their sense variations, their meanings, also some stylistic variations, idiosyncratic usages, and etymological information also, which is not easily exactly available from the corpus, but some other sources. But they collected their information mostly from the database compiled in the form of a large corpus to compile dictionary. So, in this part, we only concentrated on how manually developed language databases were used to compile. Other domains are also there where manually developed corpora are used. In the next module, we are going to emphasize on them. Thank you.